The movie starts by showing a skilled horse rider named Milagro, who was performing her act in a circus alongside with her friends. Among the audience, her husband Jim and their younger daughter Lucky were also eagerly watching her act unfold. However, tragedy strikes during the show when Milagro meets with a fatal accident, leaving her family and friends devastated. The story then jumps ahead many years, where we see Lucky as a young adult who was residing with her aunt and grandfather. One day, while her grandfather was preparing for a crucial meeting, a mischievous squirrel inadvertently enters their home due to Lucky's oversight, which causes widespread chaos. As a result, Lucky's grandfather becomes frustrated and decides to send her to live with her father, accompanied by her Aunt Cora. Meanwhile, aboard the train en route to her father's residence, Lucky catches sight of a magnificent herd of wild horses racing alongside the train. The sight fills her with awe and wonder. Stirred by the sight, she finds herself drawn to the window, yearning to extend the fleeting moment and savor the exhilarating sight for just a little longer. But she finds herself on the brink of falling off the train. But then a man named Henrik comes to her rescue. Following this, her aunt arrives and escorts her inside the train. Upon reaching her destination, where Lucky's dad used to reside, she discovers his dad's absence at the station, so consequently her aunt decides to inquire about his whereabouts. Meanwhile, Henrik engages in conversation with his friends, discussing the numerous horses they encountered along the way. Together they devise a plan to steal and sell the horses for profit. Amidst this, Lucky spots a familiar location where her mother used to perform once. There she encounters a friend of her mother, who recognizes her as Milagro's daughter and presents her with a scarf belonging to her mother. Concurrently, Lucky notices a young horse rider named Prue. But amidst the conversation, her aunt arrives there, prompting to proceed to Jim's house alone on themselves. Along the way, they encounters a mischievous kid named Snips, who begins to pester them. However, before long, Snip's elder sister Abigail intervenes and reprimands his brother for his actions. There she also introduces herself to Lucky and her aunt. After this, they finally reach to their destination, Jim's house. Jim was overjoyed to reunite with his daughter after many years. He proudly shows Lucky to her room. But after his departure, Lucky discovers another room adjacent to hers. So she curiously enters in that room. Exploring further, she finds numerous belongings of her mother from her performing days, which fills her with joy. But right then she hears the sound of a horse, upon hearing which she ventures to the stable, and there she encounters Prue alongside the horse. But then Lucky sees that the guy Henrik had brought the same horse, to whom she had seen in the field, and there Henrik and his companions were forcefully trying to control that horse. Seeing this, Lucky realizes that Henrik and his companions are mistreating the horse. Witnessing this cruelty, she feels compelled to intervene, but then Prue brings her dad there, and seeing Henrik's cruelty with that horse, all tells them to go away from there. So Henrik ties that horse and leaves with his companions. But after that, Lucky frees him from rope to roam freely in the stable. This makes the horse very glad. In the night at dinner, Lucky shares her encounter with Spirit with her dad and aunt, naming the horse Spirit by herself. However, Jim expresses concern over Lucky's growing attachment to the horse, as he was afraid he might lose Lucky as well, the same way he lost her wife. But despite his apprehension, Lucky disregards his warning and visits Spirit the following morning, where she finds that Henrik had tied him again. So determined to help him, she sets him free once again. Then there come Prue and Abigail, who offer her guidance on earning the trust of Spirit. Lucky diligently applies their advice, striving to establish a connection with Spirit. She visits to the stable daily in order to befriend him, presenting it with an apple as a gesture of goodwill. This consistent effort fosters a deepening bond between Lucky and Spirit as their relationship blossoms. Lucky finds herself gradually releasing the resentment that she harbored towards her father. One day, Lucky dresses in her mother's attire and sets out to ride Spirit, but Spirit wasn't quite ready for their adventure together, so he doesn't let Lucky to come near him. So Lucky feeds him in order to win his trust. And as soon as he gets comfortable, Lucky jumps onto him. But soon Sniffs comes there, and he opens the stable's gate. Upon seeing the gate open, Spirits runs away from there toward woods, with Lucky clinging on tightly. Seeing the chaos, Prue and Abigail quickly follow Spirit, while Sniffs rushes to inform Prue and Lucky's father of the unfolding events. As the Spirit dashes through the forest, a moment of peril arises when he nearly topples from a rocky outcrop, but Prue and Abigail intervene just in time to save Lucky from a potentially disastrous fall, but Spirit manages to run away from them. Meanwhile, Jim and Elle arrive and escort them away, but Jim's frustration with Lucky's recklessness was palpable. He warns her not to do this again. Seeing this, Lucky gets angry with him, which makes Jim to resolve sending Lucky back to her grandfather's house. Feeling dejected, Lucky retreats to her room, but her determination to find the spirit remains resolute, so she sneaks out of the house and goes into the forest to find Spirit. Eventually, she locates Spirit in the woods, surrounded by his family. There it becomes evident that Spirit had rushed there specifically for his family's sake. Lucky meets with all the horses, and in a gesture of goodwill, she distributes apples to everyone, fostering a sense of trust. However, their moment of peace was short-lived, as soon Henrik and his companions arrive there with a train. They had come there to capture all those horses, so they forcibly capture all the horses and loads them onto a train. Lucky tries to intervene, but it was of no use, and despite Spirit's valiant efforts to resist, they are ultimately sucked in their plan. Upon returning to town, Spirit comes to Lucky, and there he seeks solace in Lucky's presence, but she feels powerless to act alone. Sensing her distress, Spirit allows her to mount, and together they seek aid from Prue. But after recounting the events, Prue cautions them against chasing the fast-moving train, citing the dangers of taking shortcuts. Soon Abigail comes there, and she too says the same, that the way of mountain could be dangerous. This makes Lucky angry on them, and despite her frustration, she resolves to confront the situation alone. But soon after Lucky's departure, Prue and Abigail come to her and offer their unwavering support. Together they embark on the perilous journey through the mountain pass. Along the way, Lucky learns to better control Spirit under the guidance of Prue and Abigail. But on proceeding further, they find a bridge. Prue and Abigail manages to get on the other side, but disaster strikes when Lucky tries to cross it. The bridge collapses miraculously and Lucky fell down along with Spirit, but after a bit of effort she finally emerged unscathed, guided by Prue and Abigail to safety. But as they venture onwards, they encounter a deep chasm, which they had to cross. Seeing this, Spirit also start to swallow, but then Lucky recalls her mother's word, which she had once told her in her childhood, not to lose hope in tough times. This motivates Lucky, and she proceed anyway. After comforting Spirit, Abigail and Prue was also surprised to see this, but it inspired them to move ahead as well, and together they finally arrive to the other side. Upon sighting the water tower, finally realize they have arrived at their destination. Having taken the shortcut, they had reached the location before Henrik, prompting them to decide to wait until afternoon to confront the rangers and rescue those horses when the train passes through. In the night, they come together and enjoy each other's company and bask in the moment. Meanwhile, Jim searches for Lucky in her room, but finds her missing. Right then, Elle arrives there looking for Prue and explains the whole situation to Jim, who grows increasingly concerned for Lucky's safety, so he resolves to bring her home accompanied by Al and Cora. The next morning, Lucky and her friends make an attempt to intercept Henrik's train. Lucky bravely confronts the Wranglers in a thrilling action sequence to rescue the horses. However, she awakens to realize that it was all just a dream, and the train has indeed arrived. The Spirit rushes toward the train to rescue his friends, but instead gets himself in danger. Despite their efforts, Lucky and her friends arrive too late, and the Spirit is captured by Henrik and his companions. Despite their best efforts, they fail to save the horses. This leaves Lucky feeling hopeless. However, her friends convince her to persevere, reigniting her courage as they decide to follow the train to the docks. On the other hand, Henrik had reached the docks, where he had begun boarding the horses onto a ship with the intention of transporting them to the city for sale. But soon Lucky and her friends approaches there. Upon seeing Lucky, Spirit's joy was palpable. They successfully managed to rescue Spirit and subsequently intervened to save the other horses by confronting the Wranglers. However, they arrived too late, as Henrik was on the verge of departing with all the other horses. Seeing this, undeterred, Lucky resolves to board the ship by leaping off the docks. Soon Jim arrives there along with Al and Cora. Everyone was shocked to see Lucky, but despite the astonishment, Lucky successfully reaches the ship and embarks on the task of rescuing the horses alone. Meanwhile, Henrik and his associates attempts to capture Spirit, but Spirit didn't surrender, and his resilience thwarted their efforts. In the meantime, Lucky eventually manages to rescue all those horses. After that, she goes to Spirit, who was restrained by Henrik, but Lucky mounts on him and knocks Henrik off the ship. Now everyone was safe and rescued. However, with no other viable option, everyone was compelled to jump into the water to escape. Unfortunately, Lucky, lacking swimming skills, begins to struggle and drown, but thankfully Jim arrived just in time to rescue her from this perilous situation. Meanwhile, Prue and Abigail found themselves under attack by the Wranglers, but Elle swiftly came to their aid. Despite the chaos, Jim couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in his daughter's bravery. Eventually, everyone emerged safely to the surface. However, as Henrik prepared to exact revenge on Lucky, he was unexpectedly thwarted by Cora's intervention, teaching him a valuable lesson in the process. Witnessing Lucky's courage, Jim's heart softened, and he let go of his anger, leading to a heartfelt reconciliation between father and daughter. With tensions eased, Jim graciously allowed Lucky to fulfill her promise of returning all the horses to their natural habitat, so Lucky embarked on this journey accompanied by her loyal friends. However, the emotional connection between Lucky and Spirit made their parting bittersweet. Despite their reluctant, Spirit and his family eventually departed for the woods. Upon their return home, Lucky and Cora decided to remain with Jim, solidifying their familial bond. As they settled back into their routine, a grand festival was held, with Lucky adorned in her mother's dress. Jim, visibly delighted, serenaded Lucky with Milagro's favorite song, bringing immense joy to her heart. Meanwhile, Spirit and his family thrived in their newfound freedom in the woods. And thus the movie concludes with a sense of fulfillment and closure for all involved.